What a man saw so strange and terrifying that kept him, a seasoned and lifelong diver, from getting into the water to do his job out of pure fear. Strange, white, horse-shaped monsters. But what really did he see? And what are the implications if this is actually true? This first-hand witnessed account left me with more questions than answers, but brought me to a very unexpected conclusion you probably won't see coming. I'm Arnonaut, and listen up as I break down this cryptozoological encounter and the downright bizarre animals witnessed. While we take all of the various and strange pieces of this encounter and uncover how they fit together to reveal its true identity. This is the study of biology, morphology, and plausibility, something I call plausology. This testimony comes from an interview channel I've linked in the description and in the outro for full listening. Our witness, who by this testimony goes only by Dave to protect his identity, in 1984, as a young man, he moved to the main island of Hawaii to pursue his passion for diving. He worked as a tropical fish collector and soon started his own business collecting tropical species for public aquariums, operating a successful company where he spent every day of the week exploring the coastal waters of the beautiful Hawaiian Islands. To say he was an expert in the oceanic wildlife of the region would be an understatement, to say the least. But what would come next in his life's adventures would change his outlook on the deep waters of the Pacific forever. For him, it was just another night dive. Dave and his diving partner set out to test a new boat and new net for the first time. They often dove at night to collect the nocturnal species of fish that preferred the darkness. But while the dive was routine, the night would prove otherwise. As the men were changing into their diving gear, they heard an unusual commotion close to their anchored boat. However, they were unable to make out what was happening by their naked eye, as this was a dark, moonless night. The act of simply turning on and aiming the high-lumen spotlight toward the anomaly was casual, but the impact of what they would witness in the powerful beam was anything but. There, roughly 60 feet from the boat, thrashing in the water, were two bizarre creatures, writhing against one another in combat. Their long necks, around 2 foot in diameter at the base, rising 6 or 7 feet out of the water, had heads packed full of razor teeth. They aggressively chomped their jaws at each other, one finally finding purchase on the other's neck, drawing blood from its opponent. At this wounding, the hurt animal fled, diving into the water, casting a wake from its partially protruding back as it swam. The victor soon followed, disappearing into the deep, black Pacific Ocean. While this is the last scene of these creatures, it is where the real mystery begins. The next day, after returning to shore together in silence the previous night, Dave comes to his partner, who cuts him short as he attempts to ask about the night before. His partner sternly saying he doesn't want to talk about it, as if they did, it would then be real for him. He had rationalized an explanation for himself in his own head, and if they spoke about it further, that may falter, and he might not be able to return to the water ever again. So to preserve their sanity, their business, and their reputation, the two men would never speak of it again. But there is still much more critical detail to the story I haven't shared. This is where we're going to work through the various pieces of Dave's provided descriptions and use what we have to try and construct a clear picture of what he may have seen from a rational perspective, and may shed light on exactly what he saw that moonless night. Real quick, I'm a one-man show, art, editing, writing, the works. So a like, a hype, or a sub would be much appreciated and helps me out so much. A quick shout out to my friend Raul. He makes tools for content creators on YouTube and has helped me out so much with my content. And I'm not being paid for this, it's not an ad or anything like that. He has a good product, his tools are super useful, I use them for my content. And if you make YouTube videos of any kind, I would highly recommend checking out his tools. He also has an auto editor that can help you out with like your early stages of editing, auto removing in between times. Again, not an ad, his tools are just super useful and he's a great guy. And another quick shout out to my brother, he makes music, he's also in the description. But most importantly, thanks for watching. Now, back to the video. Dave describes, their heads were mounted to their neck the way a horse's head is mounted to its neck. But Dave goes even further to clarify that unlike a long-necked aquatic predator like a plesiosaur, who Dave describes as having a head mounted like a snake, and what he saw, despite having a long neck, did not. This makes identification extremely difficult. You see, there are very few species with a head and neck structure that is anything similar to this whatsoever. The seahorse, or its family Cygnathidae, being the obvious example. Now, while I am generally an open-minded person, I think it is safe to say there is likely not a giant, predatory, white, nocturnal seahorse haunting the waters of Hawaii. As cool as that would be, I just don't think that that's probably the case. But if it is an undocumented species of some kind, what I want to know is what could it be related to? From what that we know of can we draw reference? But let's put a pin in that because the description continues. Dave describes the skin as white, but almost translucent. He compares it to the partial translucency seen in that of an octopus. He also explains how he could see visible veins below the skin. This is very interesting and gives us something important to chew on, because animals we know of that have skin fitting this description usually spend almost all of their time exclusively in darkness. It is seen mostly in troglodytic cave dwellers. Animals like the Proteus anguinus, commonly known as the olm, and species like ghost octopus, who can also be found in the deep waters surrounding Hawaii, who completely lack the chromatophores and pigments found in their shallow water relatives. So this detail most importantly gives us an understanding of how this thing might actually live, what its habitat would actually look like, possibly deep zones of ocean like the Midnight Zone or the Bathypelagic Zone, but possibly even deeper. So we're getting a better understanding, but this also begs more questions. You see, extreme deep water pressure has significant impact on biology. And from the fact that it was witnessed on the surface engaging in some sort of territorial dispute, implies that this is not only a deep water animal, but a more transient one. In the same way that whales and some species of dolphins are able to swim to extreme depths and back regularly. And what that means for its biology is that it would require certain traits similar to that of whales. Traits like collapsible lungs, which allow it to survive the extreme pressure changes. But another question that this raises is if it is a transient species in that it goes from deep water to shallow water regularly, then why haven't they been discovered? But let's put a pin in that because there are more interesting details to go through. Dave also describes a loud, audible clacking sound when they snap their jaws shut. Now, this may sound trivial, but usually that sort of thing is indicative of a powerful bite force. A similar sound can be heard from crocodilians when they snap their jaws shut, and is about the only good example I can find of an animal with this trait. And saltwater crocodiles notoriously have the strongest bite force of any animal on the planet. So do these animals possibly have a similar mouth structure and bite force to that of crocodile? Well, there is actually a seeming contradiction with this. He also describes the teeth of these animals as long and pencil-like. The contradiction being that these kinds of teeth are indicative of a predator that eats exclusively smaller prey, and at the same time, animals with a strong bite force usually have thick, strong teeth, used for catching larger prey. There is a good reason that crocodiles have the large, thick teeth that they do. It is a complement and a requirement for their bite force. So despite the audible snapping sounds heard, it's unlikely that they had a bite force similar to that of a crocodile. So we have now gathered information and insights about this mystery animal, and there is a lot going on. But the big question, how do they all fit together? Well, the short answer is that they don't. You see, the overall description is just so incredibly unique. We can draw reference from a number of known animals for each of its traits, but there is really nothing I can find living or extinct that fits even most of them, and doesn't give us a clear indication of a general broad family of any animal that this could be sorted into. So let's go back and analyze a few of these things. You see, the obvious reference that even Dave initially makes is to a plesiosaur due to its long neck and general silhouette. But if we go the route of trying to put this in the category of a long, distant relative of a plesiosaur, we run into problems. The mounting of the head and the skin. I can't find a single example of any marine reptile, living or extinct, that had a similar head and neck structure as described. And even more importantly, aquatic reptiles don't have semi-translucent skin. Now, a surviving ancestor of a plesiosaur is already a razor thin possibility to begin with. But for me, the head structure and the skin rule that out completely. So in order to fill all of these requirements, I believe it would need to be a non-reptile. And this will sound strange, but due to its ability to traverse between deep and shallow water, in addition to the skin, I believe it is most likely to be some form of a mammal. While this is all very unorthodox, the animal that actually fits the descriptions given by Dave would be an undiscovered aquatic mammal that primarily eats fish but can traverse both deep and shallow water, preferring to enter shallower waters during the night, that has a convergently adapted long neck similar to a plesiosaur, but also a head attachment angle more similar to that of a horse, and is haunting the crushing depths of the Pacific Ocean. And I would like to leave it there, but there are still massive holes. And the biggest one to me is the fact that this would need to be a mammal and it would need to breathe air. And if it needs to breathe air, it would need to surface fairly regularly. Even though it may prefer to surface at night, I still feel like it would probably need to surface during the day. And if it is as large as he describes, it seems odd to me that it would have never been seen. I think the fact that it would have gone undiscovered this long is very unlikely, unless maybe the population is just absolutely on the brink of extinction and has been for a long time, to the point that, you know, there's just so few of them to even see to begin with, and they also have to be surfaced at the same time that they're witnessed, and they also prefer night. Maybe that could account for why they're undiscovered, but it does seem a bit more difficult. Now, while I won't tell you that this is a real animal, it is still extremely interesting, and at the end of the day is a genuine mystery and a fascinating account. For me, the plausibility strictly as described isn't very high, but I want to know what you guys think. Is this thing, does it have any plausibility? What did I miss? What aspect of this kind of jumped out to you? Maybe you can give me some insight I didn't think of when I was writing this video. I would love to hear it because this stuff is genuinely super interesting. And what do you think about the account? Is it a flat out tall tale? Is it mistaken identity? If so, what do you think it would be? Or is it truly an undiscovered species? But as always, thanks for watching.